Hey folks, it's your pal Antonio White here, and we're focused on issues relating to the Westside and the Richmond District and Sunset District in particular. And I had the opportunity to hear Angela Alioto speak at a social club that I belong to, and a lot of the things that she said connected well with what I understand a lot of the folks in the Richmond District are looking for and concerned about, and maybe not feeling that they're receiving from some of the other candidates. So I proposed to Angela to have a conversation with me about the topics here, and she kindly agreed. Angela,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you, Antonio.
So why don't you kind of get started what your thoughts are with issues that are on the west side, and maybe we just kind of have a little conversation.
Well, first of all, the west side of town is very near and dear to my heart. You know, I did a walk up of Clement yesterday, and there were all my old stores from when I was a kid, where my brother Mikey and I used to sneak over to Clement and go to the Cornet Theater and go to all the stores and walk out. And then I used to also be out at the beach all the time. So it's very near and dear to my heart, and a big part of my upbringing, a big part of my life. And it's an area that right now is having problems just as much as the rest of the city when it comes to traffic, when it comes to, as you said, the issue I have with the bulb outs, when it comes to the water hike, the biggest issue I think is most definitely Scott Wiener's density issue, which is, could totally turn the west side of our city into a different city.
Right.
I mean, if it was really effectuated as to its terms and conditions, it would be a city of corridors of 10-story buildings. But the worst part of that legislation, in my opinion, is the fact that we're giving away the city's ability to rezone. We're giving the zoning to the state. Now, the state rezones for the whole state, right? You can't possibly compare San Francisco's west side to anything in San Diego, Los Angeles, or Eureka, or anywhere else. We're a very particular city. We have very definite districts in our city. The Richmond is a very definite district. The Sunset's a very definite district. Excelsior, Ingleside, going all the way over to Hunters Point. We are very definite, and in that definiteness, we're unique. We're unique. So you can't possibly do a piece of legislation that not only affects the whole city, but the whole state, that is uniform, that is going to not destroy what we have as a city. So, first of all, I would never give away our zoning, which is what it does, to the state. Second of all, some of those things they're calling transit hubs could literally be bus lines. And so if you're going to look at it that way, for example, Irving Street, Judas Street, those are all obviously transportation hubs, right? So this would permit the building to go up 8, 9, 10, 11 stories, which would make literal corridors in what's otherwise known as the neighborhood.
We have those wind tunnels already throughout the Richmond District, just with 2- and 3-story buildings.
With 2 and 3.
There. I can't even imagine with 8 to 10 story buildings what that would end up.
Well, that's how I feel. But I really consider myself the mayoral candidate of the neighborhoods. I know the neighborhoods of San Francisco very, very well. Born and raised here, but more importantly than born and raised is literally went from district to district to district as a teenager, and as being my father's daughter also. Well, my dad used to take us everywhere, from the Excelsior, Ingleside, Stonestown, the Sunset. My best friend lived on Noriega and 15th, so I was out there all the time. And then again in the Richmond, when we literally grew up. And I know I'm saying the buzzwords that everybody freaks out about in politics, but that the citizens understand, and that is the character. I mean, the character. I mean, just even looking at, let's take the Russian church out there. Beautiful little church. I used to go out there all the time. I went out there about 6 months ago. And it's also the only church in town that has a saint.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think St. John is the only saint on the west side of the city. But you have, growing up, I was acutely aware of the Russian neighborhood. And then I was acutely aware of what later became the Chinese neighborhood on Clement. My dad and I used to walk from our home to Clement and Arguello to buy the News Call Bulletin every night. And of course, Geary Street and the Cornet Theater. You talk about something that broke my heart.
We have a very strong, vibrant seniors community, and they're very independent. They want to be able to get around easy. They want to maintain their safety. A lot of them have issues with fragility and so on, but they're still independent and moving around. How do you address these development issues for development, for transit, and so on with the senior community out in the Richmond District?
Well, quite frankly, I think that anything that the city does when it comes to areas like the Richmond and the Sunset, the whole west side of the city for that matter, has to take into account seniors and children.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Seniors and children. I mean, I told you the other day at the Breakfast Club meeting, I'm the only parent in this race, okay? And I can't tell you how many things I relate to that my colleagues are not relating to.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe it's because of the responsibility of being a parent. A parent wants to know, where are the bus lines? Where are the children being let off? Okay. A daughter wants to know, where are the elderly getting bus stops where they get off? How far do they have to walk? Where's the health care also? How difficult is it for the healthcare workers to get to where people are? Those are huge issues, and I think that anything from transit down Geary Street to Irving to Sloat to any of the big arteries has to be looked at from the viewpoint of serving the public that lives in those areas on top of the regular working public, i.e. children and the elderly.
Yeah. So you mentioned at the meeting that we had earlier about bringing in professionals that understand how things work and that not one person knows everything. If you think about the Mission District with the Mission BRT program and so on, or just transit as far as Powell Street and Chinatown and so on, what is the mistake that's being made that you see, objectively, and how might you reconfigure the way things are done with regards to the large transit projects in the city?
Well, Antonio, I think that I differ from everybody in politics right now on this topic. Those contracts are exactly that, contracts. So if your street, let's say you have a block in the middle of Chinatown and they're tearing it up. They tear it up and then they lay it back down, but the contract's not finished. So what they do is they tear up a little more of what they just laid down. The small businesses that are the backbone of our city are suffering incredibly while these streets are being torn up. But the departments are living out contracts. That's what has to be looked at.
So what does that mean? Because you went into that a little bit here, and it seemed like there's money that's being spent in odd ways it ties into the Chronicle article about you removing some of the department leadership here, and maybe you want to kind of dig a little bit deeper into that, kind of what was behind that, what your thoughts were, to get some clarification.
What's behind that, Antonio, isn't, look, I'm a wrongful termination, discrimination trial lawyer. You know what? I totally understand what it means for someone to lose their job. What I'm talking about is there are some department heads that have been there 18, 20, 25 years, okay? And if you look at it, it's the departments that are having problems. Let me use Columbus Avenue for an example.
Okay, great.
Okay? Columbus Avenue has been torn up for the last 6 years, nonstop. So they'll start on the 500 block of Columbus, and now that block is, I think it's 61% empty. Empty. The stores are empty.
Okay.
They're gone.
With same issues going down Geary Boulevard.
And they're still fixing the street. Then they go up and they go down Vallejo Street. They fix that street. Those stores suffer for 2 to 3 years. Then they come back and go right back down Columbus Avenue. So I stopped and said to the people that were working on it, could you please tell me why you're redoing this again? Why are you redoing this street you just paved? And the gentleman working there was very honest. Of course, he's an independent contractor. He's not part of the city. He says, we still have money in our contract. I said, what do you mean you still have money in your contract? We have a contract that still has money in it to pay us. So we're not going to stop till we get all the money that's in our contract, no matter what happens to the street.
Okay, so it's mind-boggling to me.
It's mind-boggling.
Okay.
I thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
So I went down and started investigating some of these contracts, specifically one like the one on Broadway Street. That Broadway tunnel has been impassable for the last 3 years. Have you noticed our parks are being redone again?
Okay.
Okay, they were just done 3 or 4 years ago. The one around the corner from me, Alta Plaza, being redone again. Lafayette, Anza, they're all being redone again. Amazon, being redone again. It was just done.
Wow.
Why does that happen? I don't know. I'm going to investigate. I'm going to audit and investigate. If it turns out, as I believe it will, most certainly, that the department heads have gotten so nonchalant that they literally have these fiefdoms, then that department head needs to be replaced with someone who takes the bus, with someone who has to get around that traffic, with someone who needs emergency services, with someone who gets what the city needs. And there are a lot of local San Franciscans that get it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you have to leave San Francisco to find the appropriate people to run these departments. That's not true at all. We have a lot of people in the department.
So the bulb outs was something that was very surprising to me, because when the MTA talks about, or the DPW talks about the bulb outs, they talk about how much safety is provided by these bulb outs for the seniors, and you take the opposite version, that these are actually dangerous. How is it that your insight as to the bulb outs is so different from what we've been sold by the MTA and DPW?
You know, like I just told you, Antonio,
Yeah.
I think it's because I live and breathe here.
Yeah.
I went out. I talked to Ed Lee, Mayor
Yeah.
Ed Lee, who's a very good friend of mine for 40 years.
Yeah.
I love Ed very much, okay? It's an absolute, you know, Travis, just terrible what happened there.
Yeah.
But I went to Ed about 3 months before he passed away, and I said, Ed, I want to understand this. They're redoing the same bulb outs they already did on Columbus Avenue. Don't forget, I built the little chapel on Columbus Avenue, so I'm down there all the time. They're redoing the bulb outs. And I said, why? He said, oh, let's not talk about the bulb outs because it's safer for the elderly. Now, on North Beach in Columbus Avenue, there are a lot of elderly. Whether they're Italian or they're Chinese, a lot of elderly people.
So very similar to the Richmond
living
District.
on their
Okay.
own.
Yep.
All right, they don't want help.
Yep.
They want to be able to go buy their tomatoes, to go buy their vegetables. Okay, they don't want help. So I went out and tested it. So I'm standing on the corner of Green and Columbus and Stockton. Green, Columbus, and Stockton all come together in a triangle. I'm standing on the corner, and if you stand where there are not the bulb outs, okay, you're 3 to 4 feet back. Bus goes by, gets very close to 2 to 3 feet. Okay. Now you add the bulb outs. If the elderly person is standing at the edge of the bulb out, and the purpose of the bulb out is to make the crosswalk shorter for the elderly. Unless you're going to put a sign that says the bulb outs are here, but stand back 2 feet, then understanding you stand at the curb before you cross the street is very dangerous. It's very dangerous, and the same is true on Chestnut Street. So there's a lack of common sense. They need to be the elderly person. They need to be the kid that is going to be crossing the street and using it if they think it's supposed to be there to help them. They need to be that person to see how dangerous it's making it and how unnecessary. And in Antonio, it was millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars.
What's your take on the water rate and sewer rate increases that we just had, and that we're basically was told just a few moments ago, the idea that in 5 years they could be a 45% increase in water and sewage fees here. Is that accurate? Is that your understanding as well?
No. First of all, this is recent news, and it is not my. It's my understanding that's what they're saying. It's not my understanding that that's what it will be.
Okay.
So I'm a little skeptical as a trial lawyer and as a former president of the Board of Supervisors. I question everything.
Yep.
Okay, so I don't know how they come up with that 45%. I do have to say to all of the citizens of beautiful San Francisco, we have the best water and we have excellent prices right now for that water. If you move to any other county, you're not going to get the water that we get for the price that we get it. Okay, so that they raise it a little bit, that's one thing. 5-10%, okay. 45%, of course there's something wrong with that.
Okay, so that's not your understanding that's
not my
happening.
I don't understand how they came up with that number.
Okay, gotcha. All right, and then what you understand small business as well. You have a lot of experience in that area here, and we have a great deal of storefronts closing up and down Gary Boulevard throughout the Richmond District in particular here. Right. What's your solution here to get shops back open, to get and obviously the commensurate jobs that go along with those for the city? When
a neighborhood has a block that's got more than 2 or 3 stores on it that are vacant for more than 6 months, something has to be done. I believe that we need to speak with the owners, find out what is going on here, because it disrupts the ability to be a community and it disrupts the ability to be a neighborhood, and pretty soon you start getting these places that are boarded up and you start looking like Skid Row, like the 500 block of Columbus is an absolute disgrace in the middle of North Beach that used to be so vibrant, and now it's dead, but of course there's still doing the street again. So when you go out to Geary, Chestnut, Irving, Judah, all of the Taraval, Sloat, all of the places that have inner neighborhoods and outer neighborhoods, it's so unique. It's so great. When you start having that kind of vacancy, I believe you have to let the landlord know that at a certain point, without a clear understanding of what is being done, there should be some kind of vacancy tax. Now, I don't say that lightly because, I think that it's very important that landlords not be overtaxed. I think it's very important. But I also think that when you buy a building and own a building that is the center of a neighborhood, you have more of a responsibility to keep it the center of the neighborhood. See, these things need to be looked at. Again, I'm a person that hires experts. I understand the value, especially in things like transportation and affordable housing. You have to have people that are experts in those areas. I'm an expert in homelessness. I'm an expert in clean streets. Okay, I've done it before. I can do it again. I know how to do it. I'm not an expert in affordable housing. Affordable housing is very intricate. Can I become an expert? Absolutely. But I can become an expert through learning through other experts. You have to do, and I don't want to say an EIR, but the concept is an environmental impact report without taking a year. You have to do a survey and understand what it does to the neighborhood and take that into consideration. You can't just plop things down without taking into consideration ruining the neighborhoods. So if you take a look at the possibility of a vacancy tax, the possibility of rezoning, I want to predict something else here.
Okay.
I'm going to predict that 4 or 5 years from now, when I'll still be mayor, we're going to have vacancies all over this town. I think people
you're
are moving out.
Into 4 or 5 years, still being mayor, in 4 to 5 years, we're still going to have people moving out?
No,
you
I
can't
think we're going to
can't turn that tide?
I think we're going to have housing vacancies.
Okay, because we're already having
businesses.
Okay.
Housing. We don't have any housing.
Well, we have housing vacancies. Well, no, but we still have people moving out of the city in large numbers on a regular basis.
Antonio. Much
right.
larger.
But these are
now.
mostly renters, is what you're saying, versus homeowners.
Much larger right now. Well, I know a lot of homeowners that are packing up and leaving.
Okay.
I just talked to one today.
So what's the end result of that? What does that mean for San Francisco when this starts happening?
I think we have to watch out how much of quote unquote housing we build.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about 100,000 units. What's in the pipeline right now? I spoke to a developer that's got 18,000 housing units in the pipeline right now that should be ready in a year and a half from now. So 3 or 4 years from now, when people have started to move out of town, are we going to have vacancies? That of course brings the price down because supply and demand.
Yep.
Right now the demand is higher than the supply. Well, we're going to end up with a supply that's lower than the demand.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's
basic
basic.
What about, so talk about basic elements here as far as being able to afford the people that you hire and bring on and so on. The hiring in the city, the hiring city government, I think the number was, we have a $9.2 billion budget, $9.1 billion budget. We have 30,000 plus employees in San Francisco. I think we're still short on the police. How many police officers
we need full staffing of our police officers and our fire department and our emergency services.
Right.
That's one of the first things I'm going to do.
Right. And so what's been holding that up? What do you see? What do you see as, because I guess the other issue is on the side of pensions, and as we hire these people, we're also political
will and the budget.
Okay. So do you see that we need all the people that are being hired? It seems like we're just on a hiring spree, and that the next generation is going to pay for it.
Well, I'll tell you something funny, and I hope Willie Brown doesn't see this, because Willie has been a friend for a very, very long time. He and I have an excellent love-hate relationship. Excellent. I just was at the Chronicle Visionary Gala last night. And we go back a long way. I mean, we go back to where our friends were at Listen Trial when my husband was alive, and we have a lot of history together. But he's never supported me. Okay, it's that kind of thing, because he knows I'm too independent.
Okay.
Right? Willie came into office. There were 22,000 employees when I was president of the Board of Supervisors. Willie came into office and hired 12,000 people.
In that one era of him.
2 terms.
Is that
years.
right? Okay, so the giant gap.
And you know,
Wow.
A very smart political move, not
Yeah.
a great move for our city.
Right. And so now that you can't unravel that, or do you deal with attrition, or
It's very difficult.
how do you reconcile that?
You can deal with attrition in the departments that don't matter, but you cannot deal with attrition in police, fire, and emergency services.
yeah.
We have 300 officers leaving in June.
Yep.
That's a big worry to me because we're only at 17 something,
Right.
18 instead of being at 2,200. And 2,200, by the way, for the size of our city, the new amount of 887,000 people instead of 77,000 people, which kind of stayed the same from 1906 up until the 90s. It's very interesting. Now we are up, to 800 and something thousand. I think it's 47,000. That's a lot of new people. That means that 94% of the people we put into a unit are still there. That's formidable. I don't think there's any other city in the nation that can say that.
You had mentioned that the difference between getting somebody off the streets very quickly
Right.
Is essential for this versus folks that are getting accustomed to living on the street and having life on the street and
Right.
being out there for months. Your program is also about having dual and triple diagnosis
Right.
folks and getting them immediate help versus the folks that are just comfortable living on the street. How do you reconcile those different types of folks? We have more folks homeless moving into the Richmond District on a pretty regular basis now that 5 years ago even we didn't see.
Of course not. Well, because it's a crisis.
Yeah.
They let it get out of control in 2012. Harvey Rose wrote the best document I've seen in years. In 2015, he wrote a document that I pass around to some of the panels I go to. And Harvey Rose is the budget analyst for the City and County of San Francisco's Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
And he's a tough guy. I had many fights with Harvey as the board president with, well, why are you taking the money from there and not putting it here? I mean, he's a tough guy.
Yeah.
He wrote a document saying, go back to the 10-year plan. It worked. It was efficient. We saved money. We didn't need more money. And we did not have it worked.
And selfishly, how does that affect the Richmond District as far as that 10-year plan? What was involved with the Richmond District? How were we a part of that 10-year
Chronic
plan?
homelessness. And so you have parks.
Okay.
In the Richmond District, you have a lot of parks.
Right.
You've got Golden Gate Park.
Yep.
Okay. Chronically homeless people are the most difficult to take off the street.
Okay.
Those are the people we took off the streets over 4,350 chronically homeless.
Okay.
The definition of chronically homeless is living on the streets 4 to 6 years, triple diagnosed, generally speaking, average age of 41 years old and Caucasian. Okay? That is the image of a chronically homeless person, the hardest to get off the street. Now, the new group of people coming onto the street are unaccompanied women, 60% of whom have been sexually abused in their youth. Okay? They're the easiest to get off the street.
Oh, okay.
Because they just got on the street. If you get to people in the first 90 days that they're on the street before their brain starts to deteriorate, you have a much bigger chance of giving them the nutrition they need and getting them back on their feet than you're ever going to have with someone who's been off their, homeless for 6 years. So Gammon and I in the 10-year plan housed the hardest to house. We also had a prevention gap. We prevented people from being evicted or prevented people from not being able to pay their rent before the eviction. So we actually paid people's rent to keep them in their apartments until they got on their feet, and it cost 1/3 the price of paying for them as homeless people.
That ties me into another question. So, and I know that you're running out of time, so I'll get to a couple of them if I can. The one is that you have a lot of folks that are thinking, well, why am I paying for these programs? Why am I paying for somebody's rent? Why am I involved in this area? And there's this social good that a lot of these people, on the same hand, they donate a lot of money to charity, and that they have issues with the city taking over some of these programs because they don't think it's effective here.
Right.
I guess the question is, how can we trust the city to do the right things, to use this money wisely, and in so, how do we measure success for programs like this?
Well, right now you can't trust the city. It's a crisis. They, like Harvey Rose said, go back to doing what's worked. What you're doing is not working. It's over $300 million being spent. That's astronomical. 20 years ago I wrote a book. Do you have my book?
I don't have the book.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to you.
Okay,
I
good.
just bought boxes of it downstairs.
Okay, very good.
I wrote it 20 years ago.
Okay.
I said you could put every homeless person at the Holiday Inn or the Fairmont with breakfast in bed and pay the same amount of money we, the city, are paying right now.
But then the question is, more people come in the city, and
I don't buy it.
You hear that? You hear that though?
Yeah,
How do you argue that?
Let me tell you why it's different today than it was 20
Because the number
years
seems
ago.
as though it's always 5,000 or it's always 6,000. That's a perennial number. It doesn't change. It maybe fluctuates a little bit, but it seems that's the number. What's the misconception or misunderstanding with that?
Because you're not talking about general homeless population.
What are we talking about?
As someone who's dealt with this for so long, I can meet with a homeless person for 5 minutes and I can tell you exactly which direction they should go and how long they've been there, okay? You've got a general homeless population of 15,000, not 5,000.
15,000?
15,000. Chronic homelessness in our time in 2004 was 3,000 to 5,000. We housed 4,000.
These numbers seem way off base from what was being published and what we're being told.
Absolutely.
Where's the gap?
Because general homeless population isn't chronic homeless population, okay? General homeless population includes people sleeping in trailers, people sleeping in their own cars, people doing what's called couch surfing. Okay? Those are all homeless people.
Okay.
And they're included in the general homeless population number.
Okay.
You know, when I used to go out every February with Chrissy Fairchild of North Beach Citizens, that's Francis Ford Coppola's program, and Chrissy's stellar.
Yeah.
Chrissy's an amazing human being who literally takes people to get their SSI and their GIC. The majority of homeless people have mental illness, the majority of them. If they've been on the street for 2 to 3 years, there's a mental health issue. They don't even know the benefits they can get. And those benefits got the apartments. Or those benefits got paid for the ticket to send them home, and we would call their home. We would stay in touch with their families. It was an amazing program that worked so great. The idea that it got stopped is really pretty stunning to me. It's the reason we have what we have right now. It's also the reason I know that what we did worked and that it would work again.
Finally, there's a big pressure to develop the Westside Richmond District here. There's basically the concept is that it's our turn. We're not doing enough out in the Richmond for density issues or so on. How do you vision development in the Richmond District here that is appropriate or understandable? You know, how would you envision what the Richmond should look like in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
First of all, I don't think it should be very much different, either more or less. I think it should basically stay the same. Now, I have been defending the west side of this town in almost every single endorsement meeting I go to. And I look at the people asking me the question and I say, why are you guys picking on the Richmond and the Sunset? I don't understand it. That's how the city was built. I'm a trial lawyer. I have to get into people's head to prove intent.
Yeah.
Okay? There is a feeling out there that the Sunset and the Richmond aren't giving back the way other parts of town are.
Okay, great.
And my response to that is, that's absolutely ridiculous. They are keeping it what it was meant to be when it was built. Nobody has, come down to North Beach and said, we want to build, 10 stories high on the back streets and the alleys, right? But that's what they're doing out on the west side of town. And they're making me feel as though I'm being greedy by defending the west side of town. And I'm right back at them saying, you are out of your ever-loving mind. We built the city the way we built it. And just because you think you have a present need that, by the way, 3 or 4 years from now, I don't think you're going to have. I don't think you're going to have the housing issue you have right now. 3 to 4 years from now, because as you know, 1999 we had .com, and I just left the board of supervisors, and we're all wealthy before, and all of a sudden,
and 2000 bomb, of course, I'm with you.
Exactly.
Right.
So my point is, I'm a person. I ran for office as representing every single block in this city. I could never run for district supervisor. I'm a fighter for my whole city, okay? I don't like it when any part of the city is sectioned out as being elitist or as being, it is what it is, the way it was built. People bought when they bought. If you were fortunate, I bought my home 45 years ago.
Right.
Okay, I go home every day after being in this mayor's race, thanking God
That's right.
I got my home when I got it, because it would be like a 40-story building with 50 apartments in it. The point is, neighborhoods are neighborhoods, and I believe neighborhoods need to stay neighborhoods. I don't think that they should be built up, but I have to tell you, and I'm not saying this because you're from that part of town. there is a bias out there about the west side of town, and I absolutely defend it tooth and nail, as that's San Francisco. That isn't anything different than it's ever been, and it's a great part of town. Yeah. I mean, from Golden Gate Park to the ocean to Geary to Sloat. I go out I've always bought my flowers out at Sloat Nursery, and then I go across the street, see the zoo. Yeah. You know, I'm a born and raised San Franciscan, but I go see all the things tourists see.
Well, we call it a natural treasure for the city.
It's a great city.
Well, I think that's a good part to stop.
So
I really appreciate you, Angela, for taking time for Thank you so much, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, folks, there you have it here. More information, go to Angela's website at aliotoformayor.com. And we'll talk with you soon. Thanks.